right, we can start, I think. And yeah, just to maybe structure it a bit, let's start with some intros. So yeah, uh, we've organized this AMA to give you, the community, the opportunity to get deeper insights into works behind Common, especially about its current state and the underlying tech infrastructure behind it. And you could consider Common as an early stage of development, so it may be subject to changes due to design, market, legal, or other considerations. So the same goes to the project itself and the white paper as the implementation moves ahead. And just as a legal disclaimer, because of the topics we'll cover here, the information provided during this AMA is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, legal, tax, or any other advice. And for the structuring of this session, we'll go through a set of questions that I have prepared for the AMA, and then go to community Q&A where you can ask any questions you want. And the best questions will be awarded with Aleph Zero swag. We have quite some Aleph Zero caps for you. So yeah, make sure to shoot your best ones. I'm Matt Orczyński, the marketing manager at Cardinal and Aleph Zero, and today we will be joined by the authors of Common White Paper. That is Adam Gongol, the co-founder of Aleph Zero and Cardinal, Damian Straszak, blockchain developer at Cardinal and Aleph Zero, I, Katerini Pangiota-Suka, I hope I read that correctly, blockchain and cryptography researcher at Nethermind, and Albert Garetta, lead cryptography researcher at Nethermind. We also have Anthony, as I see, and lots of our community members. So yeah, let's start from the beginning. So what was the original idea behind Common? Who can start that? Maybe Adam?
Sure. Actually, that was Damian's idea, but I'd be happy to cover the question anyway. So we've been exploring what are the trade-offs when it comes to privacy and decentralized exchanges. Surely there are some. There is a well-known paper of Tarun Chitra stating that it's economically not viable. I mean, to say it non-technically, is that it's economically rather not viable to have a decentralized exchange which is fully private in the sense that nothing is ever revealed about what's going on inside. So we wanted to have some degrees of privacy. Hence, we took this journey to explore what are the trade-offs. And we ended up with a DEX that we'll, of course, be talking a lot about today, which, roughly speaking, is fully anonymous and provides as much privacy as we think is reasonable. So, yeah, I'm not going to go to technical details here. There will be a lot of time in the future for that, I guess, in the future questions. So the two things the two problems that we identified are like general anonymity for users. This is, I think, something that most people should care about. Without any anonymity, any additional anonymity, the situation on blockchain is that if you send a transaction to someone, this person can see your entire financial history, which is something that most people probably should not want. So we gave Common full anonymity, and then we thought about flavors of privacy which have economical sense, and maybe I'll give a microphone to Damian here.
Yeah, hi. I hope my audio is good enough. The other challenge regarding exchanges, cryptocurrency exchanges, is that of price efficiency, which is especially important, I would say, on decentralized exchanges, which do not always offer you the prices which are as good as, say, what you see on centralized exchanges. And essentially, the kind of problem that you would like to tackle is the following. So there is a user who wants to exchange token A to token B, and let's say the order the user is attempting to make is quite large. Okay, so lots of A for lots of B. So what happens at the point where the user is making such an order or putting such a swap on an exchange is that there is essentially an arbitrage opportunity being introduced by the user. So there is lots of money on the table, essentially. And what happens on conventional decentralized exchanges is that there are these specialized actors, which are MEV bots, essentially, who are trying to take this profit, take the money from the table right away using atomic actions, essentially. So what many different new approaches to DEXs are trying to do is to kind of take this profit and distribute it in other way. So the basic design gives this profit 100% to the MEV bots, maybe a little bit to the validators of the blockchain. What we want to do is distribute this profit to the user, or at least to a large extent. So this is essentially the gist of the problem of price efficiency. There needs to be a lot of liquidity. The liquidity is kind of on many different exchanges, on-chain or off-chain. How do we make it efficient and not give away too much money to these specialized actors?
So how common addresses the challenges that have been identified throughout the research? Anyone wants to take that? Katerini, maybe? I know we had some ideas on that.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, so let me begin with privacy. So, for example, in order to, we would like first of all to hide the identity, but also we would like to hide the value of the order, how much tokens each user wants to sell, and also we would like to hide it not to hide it until the exchange, but also afterwards. So we some of the tools that were used is that we assume a construction of shielded pools and for to hide the identity. But after that, in order to hide also the value, this is it was quite tricky, and we needed techniques like batching all the trades together. So create like a batch of many trades together that satisfy some conditions that depend on the price, and also use some cryptographic techniques that is useful for the batching, like homomorphic encryption. And using these techniques, what happens is that everything is encrypted and the values are encrypted, and the only thing that is revealed afterwards is the aggregated amount that we would like that the users in the batch would like to trade. So, for example, if we have 3 users, one user wants to sell 2 token A for token B, the other 3 and the other 5 in the batch. The batch would like to sell 10 tokens like A for token B. So we these techniques, there are cryptographic techniques there that enable us to achieve this. And after that, the decryption can be done via a cryptographic technique called multi-party computation. And then when we have the aggregated amounts in plain text, they are plain, there's nothing encrypted, it's public, the aggregated amounts. It comes a second smart contract, like a swap engine, that it performs like internal matching. When we say internal matching, it means that it tries to match the aggregated amounts inside the batch without external liquidity. So we try to do this as much as possible, but we will not be able to do it 100% because there's one of the two directions will be excessive. And then we use the technique of the Dodge auction, where there is an auction that there is a technique that brings liquidity from outside from market makers. And what happens is that the excessive amount that needs to sell or buy is sold via Dodge auction. And what happens is the Dodge auction begins with a price that it is very in favor of the users. And as the Dodge auction progressing, the price becomes better for the market makers and worse for the side of the users. But it never like violates what the upper bound that the user has set. So for example, if a user has an upper bound on the price, the dot auction never violates this bound. And this creates a competition like among the market makers. So these are some of the basic techniques, cryptographic techniques that we needed like to use and in order like to achieve privacy or privacy efficiency. And I don't know like if any other speaker wants to like to elaborate more in some of these parts.
Albert, I see you can add something here.
Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit more details on how privacy is achieved, because once the Dutch action begins, of course, there's no privacy. Everybody can see the amounts that are about to be traded. But for the individual user, as Ekaterini hinted, so the amount the individual user wants to buy or sell is encrypted. So we hide this amount using a homomorphic encryption. So the amount of the user is hidden, and then we use homomorphic encryption to add all the amounts together before decrypting them. So the type of homomorphic encryption we use is additive, which means that if you have two amounts that are encrypted and you add together the ciphertext, then you get the encryption of the sum of the plaintext. So by adding ciphertext, you get the encryption of you encrypt the sum of the plaintext of the original amount, and this allows to hide the amounts that the individual users want to trade. So in the end, everybody can see what's the sum of all the amounts, but no one can see what's an individual amount.
Right, and whenever we talk about privacy, and of course how to achieve that is really a complicated manner. This is why all of you are working on that actually, after all. But whenever we are talking about privacy, we often talk about compliance of such solutions. So, what would you say about Commons compliance with the rules that they either want the user data to be protected, such as with GDPR, or they want users' actions to be transparent on chain, such as with privacy coins and the press that they get. So maybe Adam, you could answer that.
Sure. So when it comes to GDPR, it's obviously more compliant to trade on Common than to trade on anything else, because GDPR is all about protecting data, and much more data is getting protected in Common due to the privacy. So the potentially problematic part is the AML part, anti-money laundering. So as I guess most of the listeners know, there is currently a big discussion in crypto about how to deal with privacy in the context of money laundering. In our case, this is a problem that will be dealt on a bit different level, in the sense that Common is mostly a mean of exchanging tokens, which is built upon a concept of a shielded pool. So the shielded pool itself will be solving these problems. What we're actually working on right now is a ZKID system. So a user, in order to use a shielded pool, and hence in order to use Common DEX, will have to claim zero knowledge identity. And then user will have to choose the potential reveal mechanism. And the idea is that in case of a proven malicious activity of a user, there will be a process eventually governed by a DAO of unmixing transactions of this particular malicious user. For me, it's more a question about ethics than compliance, because there is no particular rule which would make mixers non-compliant. They're just problematic. They're also problematic for users, of course. But our answer to this general problems is ZKID, where we are working together with IDOS, the project building ZKID on several layer 1 platforms.
Yes, so that's definitely something that Common is trying to address also, I assume, for institutional grade users, right? Because this is probably that they will be the most interested in whether the platform they are using is compliant to all the rules. So another topic around Common that I wanted to touch upon is the liquidity, and how does Common aim to improve on that? As you mentioned, price efficiency comes from liquidity. So what's the idea behind making it better here? And I'm sure Damian has something to say here.
Yeah, so I think it's good to first explain how the situation typically looks like on existing markets. So suppose a user wants to swap some token A to token B. Let's even make it concrete. Let's say I would like to buy Ether for USDT. So what I need to do then is I need to pick the market I would like to use. And since I believe in crypto, I believe in decentralization, suppose I would like to use a decentralized exchange. So I pick one, and then what really happens is that the liquidity on this exchange is maybe, I don't know, let's say 5 or 10% of the overall liquidity that exists for this kind of a pair, right? So Ether versus USDT. So the other markets are other on-chain exchanges, other DEXs, and there is also a large market which is outside, meaning centralized exchanges. So I guess to just give some random numbers, so let's say there is 70% of liquidity outside of the chain. Maybe there is 10% of liquidity on the DEX you are using. There is another DEX which has 10%, and there are other small DEXs which share the remaining 10%. So what really happens if you put a large order on the DEX of your choice is that you're getting a particular price which comes from how much liquidity is on this particular DEX. So in this case, it's say 10% of the whole liquidity available. And obviously, since it's only 10%, you will not be getting a very good price. In fact, if you are trading a lot, the price will be actually terrible. And what happens after you trade, after your trade is completed, is there are these specialized actors, either MEV bots or other arbitrageurs, who are essentially trying to take money from the other exchanges. So in case of MEV, that these are exchanges on chain, so other DEXs, they will just do one transaction to balance out all the prices on chain. And there are all these other arbitrageurs who will take liquidity from centralized exchanges. And this will happen probably over a couple of blocks, over a couple of seconds maybe, but it doesn't matter. So the end result is essentially that there is a lot of profit which comes from the bad price that the user got, which goes to the MEV bots, the other arbitrageurs' pockets. And this is bad. This is bad because the user could have gotten a better price and the arbitrageurs could have profited less in this particular event. So this is what we are trying to do. And this is what Common to some extent achieves. It's aggregating liquidity from other sources. So as Ekaterini said, there is a particular mechanism in Common, which is governed by the Doge auction, which essentially invites all liquidity sources to actually take part in the auction in order to get a price which is as good as possible for the user. So in this way, we are not using only 10% of liquidity, which would be, say, one on-chain exchange. We are using actually, to some extent, all liquidity sources. And this is what the auction is about, to bring all the liquidity and give less profit to the arbitrageurs who bring the liquidity and give back some of these profits to the users of Common. That's the idea that Common is essentially using for liquidity.
And how should that work from the user standpoint? What's the current idea on how users will interact with Common to get all the benefits of it?
Yeah, I guess you're asking about maybe the user interface, and I can answer that very quickly. So obviously, there is a big challenge when it comes to private systems because they are very different when it comes to user experience, user interface than all the systems we are used to. Because, well, there is no blockchain explorer for private DEX because essentially lots of the data is hidden, lots of the data you don't have access to. Also, like when you are sending a transaction, there is lots of things happening under the hood. There are cryptographic proofs being computed. There is actually lots of intricate actions being performed just to send a transaction. So this is a challenge from a technical standpoint, but for the end user, we want to make it so that it is essentially not something you would even know. As a user, you will be just trading as on a normal DEX, and your experience should be pretty much the same, or we aim for better than on a regular DEX.
Ekaterini?
Just to add something, for example, like in the current design, for example, the user can either set a very good price that it's not like he cannot like be achieved at the moment. So he can set to his order a very good price and leave this order like for some time, like until this is achieved. Or he, for example, he can set a very price that it's more achievable, and can be this will be executed his order most probably in the near future. So actually, like it's somehow like that the user can like either set like a limit order or like make it put like so a price that it's very near to the current price and make it like a market order. So it's somehow like as far as the max price what's related, like at the moment of the current design, like the user has either options, like either to put something very good and he's willing to wait until achieve it, or like if he wants like his order to be executed as soon as possible, he can like choose something that it's like very near to the current price. So just an addition, like.
Thank you for that. So I also wanted to, to go deeper into the Dutch auction mechanism because I think it's quite an important addition to how Common works. So maybe Adam, could you also give us a more practical example of the Dutch auction mechanism?
I can give a somewhat different perspective of what it does. So recently, there is this movement of making intent-based execution on blockchain instead of how it usually happens. So how it usually happens is that user sends a trade request of like, I want to sell 100 USDT for something, and well, hope for the best possible price. So how intent-based execution works as an idea is that a user will say, I would like to sell 100 USDT for 120 A0. So like there is entire intent in the transaction. So, and the user will not accept anything different than that. So the idea of intent-based execution is to somehow redesign how we think about smart contracts in general into a way where users are not doing an action and accepting the price that they're going to get, but instead they are defining the conditions that they expect to happen. So this is preached by Anoma, but there are other projects doing similar things, like, for example, CowSwap or Penumbra to some extent. So what happens in such systems is usually that we have some intent of trading in one direction, and the system is somehow matching it with the opposing intent, with someone who just wants to do the opposite thing. So if I want to trade USDT for A0, well, the system will try to match me with someone who wants to trade A0 to USDT at identical or very, very similar price. So what we do, or like why are we bringing the Dutch auction here, is that it's actually quite unlikely that if we state such an intent, there will be someone with exactly opposite intent. Most probably there will be someone wanting to trade something at a very similar price, but maybe somewhat smaller amount or something like this. So what we do is that we are matching as much of this intents as possible, and we are clearing this intents between the users of the system, and the rest, the unfulfilled parts of the intents, that what we give to the Dutch auction, where basically everyone, every arbitrator is asked to try and find in the entire ecosystem of DEXs on chain, trying to find a way to fill the specific intents. So yes, that's, as I said, for me, this idea of Dutch mechanism is a way to make intent-based execution practical, economically practical.
That's a great overview of that. So I think we can move on to the last question before we go to the community Q&A, unless anything comes up. So yeah, I see we already have some questions. So just give us the one last question, and we'll get there. Tommy Shelby. So yeah, let's cover the development roadmap of Common. What are the next steps to bring this to the market?
Right. Yeah, I think I will try to answer that. So let me go over the roadmap that we currently have and how we will get from here where we are at now to getting the white paper implemented. So what we currently work on is the, I would say, compliance part for the shielded pool. This is exactly what Adam talked about a little bit about the ZKID and how do we really create a private system which is safe for the users. And what I mean by that is that there are not really this we don't have these actors who are laundering money through the private system, and this is really the compliance part that we are working on. And since Common is kind of based on the shielded pools, this is something that we need to finish before deploying Common. So essentially, shielded pools is a foundation that the privacy framework on Aleph Zero is built upon, and Common is kind of grounded upon this foundation. So yeah, basically you need to start with the foundation in order to add new things on top of it. In the meantime, we are also working on a, let's say, basic version of Common. This would be a simple AMM Common, which would be public. I mean, the DEX would be fully public as I would say, regular kind of DEX. There would be no privacy yet, but it would be one of the sources of liquidity for the private Common, right? The one which is described in the white paper. So this will come first, and this is something we are almost done with. There will be some releases on testnet to be ready to be tested and so on. So this is something that is coming. Then obviously we will be working on the privacy part of Common. So the integration with the shielded pools, the private aggregation part. There are also many possible ideas on how to do this private aggregation. They are described in the Common white paper. So I guess, yeah, we expect many things to also be probably improved when we will be implementing this, because Common is quite complex. But yeah, when there are more people working on this, more people implementing and seeing maybe the places which can be improved, then there is always some progress happening. So yeah, I think this is also something that we expect to happen. So maybe small parts of Common will change, will improve, will simplify. Yeah, this is something which we will be seeing for sure. I guess that's the overall description of the roadmap. I think I think that's it for now.
All right. So if we don't have anything to add here, let's jump to the questions from the community. And yeah, Tommy, the floor is yours. Let me just give you the Access, yeah. Please, you can, or it's connecting. Yeah, you can ask your question now.
So my question is, I just want to know, like, is there going to be like some innovative plans to actually attract more users? Because there's a lot of competition in the crypto space nowadays with a lot of new projects emerging. So I just want to know, what is your competitive advantage over this project?
Okay, so I think the audio wasn't that clear, but if I'm correct, you asked about the competitive advantage of Common over. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I see Damian can answer that.
Yeah, so let me explain our thought process when designing Common. So maybe, and it will probably also like give some answers on that question. So essentially, the question we asked ourselves was, which exchanges are the users currently using? And essentially, there are two types of users. There are users who like to use the chain because they believe in decentralizations. They are already technical enough to like be okay with all these technical intricacies of seed phrases and so on and so on. So for these users, there are decentralized exchanges like Uniswap and so on, and they are good. But there is this issue that Adam actually mentioned at the very beginning, is that there is virtually no privacy on blockchains. So, well, it's not really a pleasant thing to show all your financial records on chain, and of course, like this is one of the reasons why many users don't really like to do that, right? So this is one kind of the issues that users are facing. So they are using centralized exchanges, and the reason for that is essentially that, well, they might feel more comfortable because there is the interface is kind of simpler. They are not revealing everything to other users because on a centralized exchange, you put an order and essentially it is kind of more private because the only party who learns about the order is the centralized exchange itself, not the other users. So what we are saying is that we are proposing a solution that is better than both the existing decentralized exchanges and the centralized exchanges. We provide something that is fully private, so there are no concerns for either of the user groups about privacy, and we are making it as liquid as centralized exchanges. And well, I think this is a good choice, and for retail and institutional users to just use this exchange instead of whatever they use. It's just like better in terms of both privacy and liquidity. So this is really our thinking process of how do we want to attract users. I guess that would be my answer.
I think this covers this quite well. So I think like to ensure that there are no problems with audio or whatever, please also add your questions to the comments section. So then we will be we can be sure that we answer the correct question. And I've seen the question from Kale. Can you decide your own level of privacy, or is it one size fits all? So who can answer that?
So right now we're thinking about the system requiring everyone to be as private as it gets in the system. We had some conversation about, well, potentially allowing some users to be less private, and that may be a feature because there are some benefits of that. I mean, it may be faster because in order to be fully private, you need to do some cryptographic computation on your machine as a user. So maybe with time, we'll add an option to be less private than default. But for now, we're working in a paradigm where by default, everyone will be as private as we can make it. So, well, it's kind of, you can say that one size fits all, but like, yeah, we are using XL size for everyone when it comes to privacy, which I guess is not bad.
I like this comment. All right, so I know we are short on time, so let me just go through the questions from the community. So guys, please add your questions in the comments, and I'm going through them one by one. If we don't make it on time, we will just answer them in your comments. So don't worry if we run out of time. So I see a question from Dr. Alba, and this is: how does the common DEX operate regarding the merging and splitting of nodes, and what impact does this have on token management and user privacy preservation? Great question.
So I can try to take it. It's actually not a property of common itself. It's a property of how the shielded pools are implemented. And how they are currently implemented is somewhat different than other shielded pools which are known in the space, because we have a system in which user has only a single node at any time, which is actually close to account-based system. It's almost account-based system. And how we do it is that whenever a user is making an action which would normally create an additional node, we always pair it with the action of merging the two nodes. So the idea is that a user has a singular node, and for example, when user is making a new deposit into the shielded pool, which would normally create a new node, what happens instead is that the old node is invalidated and the new node with the sum of the token values is created. So in this sense, when it comes to just holding tokens in the shielded pool, we have this single node assumption, which we do because of the zero ZK ID and this KYC and this AML protection. But I think this topic is a bit too deep in to be covered on this podcast. We should be publishing some documents on ZK ID soon, so that will be definitely laid out there. And Damian, I see you're raising hand.
Yeah, just a clarification for those of you who have been reading the white paper and haven't seen this part mentioned. So yeah, I said just a minute ago that there will be improvements on the way, and this is already an improvement over the white paper. And maybe I would say, yeah, something making it more concrete, because the white paper says it talks about this basic version of nodes where there can be many nodes for one type of a token and for one user. So this is written there in this version for simplicity. The real system will probably be a little bit different. And as Adam mentioned, we tend towards having a version with just one node per user, which is actually a pretty nice design, and it's making the ZK ID system kind of better. So yeah, like whatever is written in the white paper is correct, but yeah, there are these little tweaks that you can make to the shielded pools that don't really change the overall workings of the system, but can make it better in the other properties of the system.
Okay, next question, one that Araken always wanted to ask. This is: what is the plan for Common to provide privacy through mixing, but not to be put into the same basket as Tornado Cash and other mixing protocols related to all sorts of financial criminal activities?
I think I already at least partially covered it during the compliance question. So just to quickly repeat it myself, that's the idea is that there will be a ZK ID system hard coded into the shielded pool. So there will be no way of using the anonymity without claiming a ZK ID. And yeah, and like there is a lot of technical stuff going on there. I think within we should be publishing the initial design soon, but the idea is that the user will have this ID of himself inside of each node that he creates, and then there will be a DAO that could potentially force reveal transactions. So like, how do we not end in the same basket as Tornado Cash? Well, like the core problem of Tornado Cash are this illicit deposits of obviously stolen funds that go into Tornado Cash, and well, they are lost forever. So in our case, if such a deposit ever happens, there is an instance which will be able to unmix this particular deposit. So yeah, that's how we don't end up in the same basket.
All right, next one. This is like a basic question from Greg King for non-tech users, and I think this would be perfect for maybe Anthony to answer. Why users should choose common DEX over others? Of course, we have the tech aspects that we are covering here, but also from the broader standpoint, maybe you can add something to that.
I think Damien summarized it pretty well in his previous answer, because I really like this quote where Damien said it's just better. And as broad as it is, the problems that privacy enhanced DEXs, or generally anything that aims to be decentralized and private at the same time, the challenge that it has is UX, really. So the UX understood in the sense as both the way that you interact with such a product. So you need to essentially wait. The interface is kind of clunky. You don't know really what you're supposed to do. And if you click, the option to shield your tokens, it might work, it might not work. So we were trying out some of the products that were already deployed, and some of them just, for instance, crash for unknown reasons. And we want to fix that also on the front end, so that the user is really nicely guided throughout the entire procedure, and whatever app, whether it's mobile or desktop, it gives enough feedback to the user so that they understand what's going on. And the second part is also something that Adam was mentioning a while back, and what the community was asking for, which is how do we avoid the challenges that Tornado Cash and similar products faced. And this is accomplished via identity. So if we're introducing identity verification to the product, then the question becomes, how do we make it as usable and as non-obtrusive to users as possible? And this is where our collaboration with IDOS kicks in. So effectively, once you do have your credentials, then how we imagine the flow of the user is that, for instance, they can reuse those credentials across all of the apps that utilize the privacy framework within the LF0 ecosystem. A0 ID is obviously going to be also this entire setup, because once a user has their identity verified, has it combined with the DNS, then it just becomes easier. As for instance, one benefit that is maybe non-obvious is that they can just use one wallet, derive sub addresses from it, and they don't have to set up new wallets every time they want to, I don't know, give money stables or give A0 back to a friend for buying a pizza, or whatever easy example you can think of. So you can just use essentially the same wallet for everything and maintain your privacy.
All right, the next question from the Hatworthy. What is the functionality of the CMN token within the platform, if there is such a token? Will it be used to reward LPs, for example? Yeah, let's start with the first one.
Yes, so we have not published the full CMN tokenomics, so we're not going to explain it fully here as well, because there are still some works being done. But yeah, the general ideas are as follows. So first of all, yes, there will be a token. The second, yes, it will be used for, in part, to incentivize liquidity providers. So like the idea of farming, where this token is distributed for several years among LPs to provide this liquidity boost. And besides that, we're working on an economical mechanism where this CMN will be automatically buy off the market for internal use. But this is something that is still not finished and will be published in the future. But besides that, yes, it's gonna be pretty obviously, it's going to be used for governance as well. So pretty standard DEX token in this regard. And I think Anthony could add something on top of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, so like the primary use case that obviously we have in mind is governance. So first, as Madam mentioned, rewarding LPs, of course, but governance also. So how do we essentially design the system in a way that allows to create a DEX that is actually in the end decentralized? And this is something that we're still working on. It's been in progress for quite a few months already. And details, yeah, please just expect them in the next. I don't want to give deadlines, but probably a few weeks.
All right, and maybe the last question before we have to wrap up, just just as to remind you, we'll go through them after all. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But maybe let's go with this one by Dark Side Suits. Will Liminal and ID tech be open source so other protocols can use the pools as long as they register to the ID system? We are thinking about allowing users to use an anonymous pool if they want to game on DSS privately in the future.
So yes, I mean, of course, obviously, everything we do will be open source in the sense that the code will be open source. But I think the question has also a bit different meaning. So, like, not only the code will be open source, but there will be an option of adding a trading pair as a non-core developer. So that's something different than just being open source. But yes, that's also going to be possible. So community will be able to define its own trading pools, and well, provided that they will be able to attract liquidity, and this pools will be as usable as the official ones, let's say.
All right, and we have one last minute left, so maybe we should just wrap up. So thank you guys for all your questions and coming up. So so many of you is here. That's really a sign for strength of our community, and we are just getting started. So stay tuned for our upcoming information that will be out soon. And yeah, thank you for coming here, and see you around on the next AMAs. Bye bye, and have a great day, everyone.